Alrighty, so welcome back. Today we will be reacting to Max Miller's The Killer Pigs of the Middle Ages. I actually watch Max Miller quite a bit. I just got a request to react to them, or at least a video of them, so that's what I'm reacting to. So yeah, I'm assuming this is kind of like a board, like in Asterix maybe? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
During the Middle Ages, Europe was terrorized by a beast who roamed the streets.
Wait a fucking minute. What is this? What the fuck is... Why does it have legs on their back? What the fuck is this?
Destroying property and slaughtering innocent children.
Oh no.
It was also their main source of meat, the pig. So today
What? Wait a minute. That can't be the pig doing that. Wait, hang on. I'm gonna need to rewatch
During
this.
the Middle Ages, Europe was terrorized by a beast who roamed the streets, destroying property and slaughtering innocent children. But it was also their main source of meat, the pig. So today I'll be making a 14th century recipe.
You really gotta be a horrible parent to just leave a child unattended to the point that it gets killed by your pig.
For pork loin as I tell you of the crimes and trials of pigs in the Middle Ages.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember seeing a video about it, where animals will be put on trial and stuff.
Enjoy some medieval pork, this time on
Oink,
Tasting
oink.
History. When you read through medieval cookbooks, one of the most common meats that you'll encounter is pork, whether it be in the form of fresh
What about
meat,
chicken?
bacon,
I like
pork,
chicken.
sausages, hams, or lard.
Ooh,
And unlike
sausage.
porpoise, peacock, or porcupine,
Wait.
bacon, the most common meats that you'll encounter is pork, whether it be in the form of fresh meat, bacon, salt pork, sausages, hams, or lard. And unlike porpoise, peacock, or porcupine, pork was one of those
Porcupine is really weird to eat. Like, why would you eat a freaking porcupine? Isn't it really spiky? I mean, I guess you could eat the meat under it, but like, why fucking porcupine of all things?
that was available to most people, at least for part of the year. But while a peasant might be able to get their hands on a plain pork pie or a slab of bacon, today's recipe, which includes lots of spices, would have only been available to the wealthy.
The
as it was
1%,
written
I see.
In the form of curry, compiled by the chief master cooks of King Richard II in 1390. Cor Marie. Take coriander, caraway, small ground, powder of pepper and garlic ground in red wine. Muddle all this together and salt it. Take loins of pork raw and flay off the skin, and prick it well with a knife, and lay it in the sauce. Roast thereof what thou wilt, and keep that falleth therefrom in the roasting, and seethe it in a little pot with fair broth, and serve it forth with the roast anon. So it's a pretty
The
simple
fuck is an anon?
marinated roasted pork loin. But what made it special from a medieval point of view, a dish of with fair
Roast earth what you will, blah blah blah, and serve it forth with a roast anon. I can't read medieval. Ow! Can't read medieval English.
broth, and serve it forth with the roast anon. So it's a pretty simple dish of marinated roasted pork loin. But what made it special from a medieval point of view is the amount
Hey, stop roasting me! I'm a fucking robot, you meanie!
of spices being used, like coriander and caraway, which had to come all the way from southern Europe, and black pepper, which came all the way from India. So while these flavors might seem pretty tame by today's standards, to a 14th century commoner, they would have been pretty extraordinary. So, to wow any medieval peasants who might come your way and want a bite to eat, what you'll need is 3 to 4 pounds or 1.5 kilograms of pork loin.
Isn't loin like the private parts? Like a loincloth covers the private parts, no?
1 tablespoon of coriander, 2 teaspoons of caraway seeds, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3 cloves of garlic, 1 bottle of red wine.
Ooh, I want that. I want that.
And 1 cup or 235 milliliters of beef broth. Now, while the recipe is pretty simple, it does take some time to make
Pork dick. Maybe.
the marinade.
That reminds me, once my dad, I think they had like a retirement, either it was a Christmas party or a retirement party at his work, where my dad basically brought in some pig tongue for people to eat, and apparently it was interesting.
Marinating and all of that broth. Now, while the recipe is pretty simple, it does take some time to make the marinating and all of that, which is why I am always on the lookout for meals that don't take much
Not the
time
sponsor.
to prepare. Meals like the oven ready, easy to follow often, but just can't seem to off of
There
your
you
first
go.
box from Home Chef. As for our medieval cormarie, or cormery, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it takes a little bit more work. So let's start with the marinade. Make sure all of your spices are pretty well ground up, and then mix them together in a bowl. The coriander, the caraway.
Oh, it's Yoda. It's a Yoda TTS. No wonder it wasn't working. That might take a while to kick in.
The pepper and the salt, and add in the garlic, either minced or crushed. Then whisk all of that together and start to add in the wine. And start off with just a couple cups of the wine. You may not need the full bottle, and you don't want to waste that wine if you don't need it, because you can drink that all by its lonesome. You can put the marinade either in a bag or in a dish, and you'll get a better idea of exactly how much you need.
Why is Yoda not working? Yoda, please work.
Murder.
Oh. Okay. Yes, it worked. Okay, let's move on.
And you can put the marinade either in a bag or in a dish, and you'll get a better idea of exactly how much you need. As for the pork itself...
Wait, hang on. I kind of missed that because of Yoda.
Then whisk all of that together
and
start to add in the wine. And start off with just a couple cups.
Wait, so it's basically spiced wine at this rate?
You may not need the full bottle, and you don't want to waste that wine if you don't need it, because you can drink that all by its lonesome.
Yay!
You can put the marinade either in a bag or in a dish, and you'll get a better idea of exactly how much you need. As for the pork itself, the recipe says prick it well with a knife. This isn't standard in today's cooking methods, but it will let the marinade penetrate a little bit deeper. Then set the pork in the dish or the bag and coat it.
I never heard of people poking a pork to let stuff in. That's new to me.
The marinade, adding more wine if you need. You can also flip the pork over once in a while just to make sure it fully gets marinated all around. Or if you use a bag, it's actually going to be a lot easier. Either way, let it marinate for at least a couple hours, preferably overnight in the fridge. The next day, you can take it out of the marinade and pat it dry. And then it's time to cook the pork. Ideally, you're going to put this on a spit over or next to an open...
Why is it called the spit? It's like, you don't spit on it, right? Why is it called a spit? Like, is it S-P-I-T? Or is it some weird medieval word for like spitting or something?
Flame. But ideally, you're going to put this on a spit over or next to an open
Yeah, it really is
flame.
called a spit.
But my goal with this channel is always...
Marinated pork loin? Oh god.
Over or next to an open flame. But my goal with this channel is always to make recipes that you can recreate in your kitchen.
Wait.
And with this on a spit over or next to an open flame.
Okay.
But my goal with this channel is always to make recipes that you can recreate in your kitchen. And I'm thinking most people don't have an open fire in their kitchen. Cool if you do, but most people don't.
Be true.
So we're going to emulate that open flame that's going
Barbecue?
to create some char by first searing the pork.
Oh.
So bring a large pan.
That's less exciting.
And add just a little bit of oil, and then set the pork in fat side down and let it cook for 2 to 3 minutes, and then flip and repeat on all sides.
Oh god, that is really dark.
Until there's a nice crust. And if it gets a little bit of a char, that ain't a bad thing. Then remove it from the pan and set it in...
Oh god. Hang on. Yeah, he should be wearing gloves. I choked on my own spit for some reason. Hang on. Anyway, let's continue.
In the roasting pan, with or without a rack, you could actually...
Oh god, that is way too complicated. I mean, maybe... I mean, I don't... If it's something with chicken, maybe. But, like, I don't want to... Because I live alone, and I can be very slow, and... It's very complicated. At least it looks to me very complicated. Like, just getting the spices would be a nightmare, because I don't have a car. And trying to explain to my parents that I need this for a stream, they're going to look at me really funny.
All sides, including the ends, until there's a...
Maybe if once I can drive and actually go somewhere to get stuff, maybe then. Yeah, maybe then. Hopefully I pass my driver's license.
Nice crust. And if it gets a little bit of a char, that ain't a bad thing. Then remove it from the pan and set it in the roasting pan, with or without a rack. You could actually even use the same pan that you seared it in, and then ladle a bit more of the marinade on the top, and set it in the oven at 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius for 40 to 60 minutes.
Nice.
The length of time that it needs to cook is really going to depend on...
Wait a minute. What is this plushie in the background? What is it? What is that?
...the size of the piece of pork.
Is it even a plushie? Wait, is it a plushie of a boar?
About 15 to 17 minutes per pound, but it really does vary. The best way to tell when it's done is to insert a thermometer into the center of the pork.
Wait.
It does vary. The best
Oh,
way
I
to
thought
tell when
this
it's
glass
done
was
is
full.
to insert a thermometer into the center
I wish I had that. I don't have that.
of the pork, and you're looking for it to be about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe a little bit more. It is going to continue to cook
Goddamn
even after
freedom
you take it
units.
out of the oven because you want to get it to about 145 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Also, if it starts to burn on the top at all, just put a piece of foil over it. Once it's at temperature, take it out and let it rest for 10 to 15 minutes before slicing. And while it rests, take the drippings from the pan and put them in a saucepan along with the cup of beef broth. Then you can put this over a low heat to simmer. It's not going to become a sauce, but more like a jus that you would get with a French dish.
Jus, he
And
said
while
a
the meat
French
rests
word.
And the jus warms, I just wanted to remind you of the tasting history newsletter that you can
Jus, by the way, for those that are uninitiated with French, is literally just juice. It's the word for juice.
sign up for at tastinghistory.com, and I can lift the curtain on the darker side of the medieval pig.
Oh?
So before we get into the menace that was the swine of the Middle Ages, I wanted to recommend a wonderful book called The Medieval Pig by Dolly Jorgensen. It's a splendid deep dive into a really niche topic, and I always love that kind of book, and it was written really, really entertainingly, so I'll put a link to that in the description. Now, today when we think of pigs, we often think of cute,
Those
fat,
things,
smooth,
yeah.
pink pigs like Babe.
Is this from
It's actually
Charlotte's
a
Web?
relatively new development.
I read Charlotte's Web as a kid. I liked it. What the hell is wrong with my... Okay, nothing's wrong with my Crocs.
Smooth pink pigs like Babe. But that's actually a relatively new development, being around the 17th or 18th century. Before that, at least in Europe, most domesticated pigs looked more like their wild counterparts. Not so fat, covered in bristles, and sporting long snouts and fearsome tusks.
I
Can
see.
you imagine if Porky Pig had been like animated based on that description? Not so cute, but I'd love to see that. If anyone knows how to draw Porky Pig based on that, that'd be interesting to see. Anyway, if these beasts were so unattractive, why were they so popular? Well, it's because they were a great source of meat. Both in and out of towns, many people owned at least one pig because, unlike a cow, they don't take up much space, they're fecund, meaning that they have lots of babies, and most importantly, they will eat absolutely anything. A family could feed their pig on their leftovers, or the dregs from making ale, or old fish, or bad dairy, or pretty much any bracken that grew in nearby forests. Then, in October and November, they could be fattened up on the acorns falling from trees which humans didn't eat.
Barking the pigs.
Up on the acorns falling from
Wait a
trees.
minute.
In October and November, they could be fattened up on the acorns falling from trees which humans didn't eat. Often you had to get permission to let your pig feed on the acorns of trees that belonged to other people. It was called the right of pannage, and then you would just pay that person
Don't bark me.
in bacon from the then fattened up pig. There are numerous medieval images showing swineherds knocking acorns from trees just so their pigs could get their fill. Truly the perfect farm animal, except not, because many medieval people felt that pigs were
I kind of
really
missed
picking
the last part.
falling from trees which humans didn't eat. Often you had to get permission to let your pig feed on the acorns of trees that belonged to other
So that would be
people.
kind of like if you had to like go to a place to like mill your flour or whatever.
Of pannage, and then you would just pay that person, usually in bacon, from the
Bacon.
then fattened up pig. There are numerous medieval images showing swineherds knocking acorns from trees just so their pigs could get their fill. Truly the perfect farm animal, except not, because many medieval people felt that pigs were really only good once they were prepared for the dinner table. Hence the 14th century French poem which refrains, "A pig does no good in its life." So why, if these animals gave so much to people, were they also so reviled? Well, first of all, they stink. Especially in towns and cities, raising pigs was a constant source of foul odors, and any animal which eats a lot also produces a lot of manure. And to the contrary idea
And
that medieval
farties.
people didn't seem to mind everything stinking, they did, and actually odor was a big issue because they had noses just like we do today, but they also had the belief
Oh,
that
yeah,
odor
that.
transferred illness. So throughout
Yeah. Which is why I think, you know, plague doctors with their like really long beaks, they had lots of nice smells at the end of it to quote protect them from the illness because they thought that it would be transferred by bad odors. So they would have very nicely smelling plants at the end of the beak. So they would breathe that in to supposedly protect them from it.
Europe, there were laws about how you
At least that's what I heard. But yeah.
had to clean up after your pigs. Typically, if you had a pigsty, it had to be kept in such a way that the neighborhood is not exposed to stench or foul air.
Rule of
This often meant
Ghent.
that it had to be placed behind your house, away from the road, and far away from any drainage ditches which might carry water. In the city of Norwich, England in the 14th century, Saturday afternoons were set aside for everyone in town to clean out their pigsties. A lot of other places made rules that you could only transport manure at night when there were fewer people out on the road to smell it. Other laws dictated where and when you could
That reminds me. Apparently, one night, I was in my room watching videos and stuff, and at some point it started smelling like if there was a burning fire. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" So I go outside and I'm like, "Yeah, it is coming from outside. What the fuck is this?" And I told my mom, like, "Is there a fire? Is it burning? It smells weird." Apparently, there's a place that deals with carcasses of animals, and it fucking stinks nearby. And when there's no wind, the stench just falls to the ground level and it just stinks the entire neighborhood up. I never knew that because at my place, I never smelt that. But here, apparently, it can happen, which is interesting. I did not know that. So, yeah.
scald your pig. That is a process of removing all of the bristles after they've been slaughtered.
Bristle?
That is a Other laws dictated where and when
Is the bristle the like the fur?
you could scald your pig. That is a process of removing all of the bristles after they've been slaughtered, because the process supposedly really stinks. As in 15th century Coventry, it was written that every butcher to scald his swine at the common scalding house, or 20 shillings fine. In London, the punishment could be common scalding house, or 20
Oh, okay. So basically, don't do it at your own house. Do it at this place where everything's contained. Okay.
shillings fine. In London, the punishment could be really quite steep. In 1365, after breaking some of these rules, William Baldwin, tanner, entered into a bond of £100 to the commonalty.
Holy fuck!
That he would not in future rear pigs in the city.
That is a lot of money for that time.
He also paid a fine of 20 shillings and was given a week in which to remove his pigs from the city.
Oh, okay, wait. Does that mean if he doesn't remove his pigs from the city, he'll have to pay that? That would make sense. Okay. I was like, what the fuck? That's a lot of money to get some random tanner to pay.
In many cities, there were laws about exactly how many pigs you could own. Like in Ulm, Germany, a person could have 24 pigs, while in Bratislava, you were limited to 2 unless you were a butcher, but even then you only got 4. There were even some cities, like Coventry in 1423, where swine were banned altogether. Now, all-out bans were rare because so many people depended on pigs to eat, but they did happen. One of the largest pig bans took place in 1489 when the Duke of Bedford ordered that the entire city of Dublin had to remove all pigs and sties, for they infect the air and produce mortality, fevers, and pestilence throughout the city. Many citizens and sojourners...
What the fuck is that picture? Is it like a pig on stilts? Huh? How bored were they when they drew this?
thus died in Dublin. Of course, now we know that it was not the pigs at all, but rather a flare-up of plague in Dublin. But still, they thought that odor transferred the plague in other instances.
I mean, to a point, there is a logic in that because, you know, your poop smells bad, and your poop sometimes harbors, like, bad bacteria, which make you sick, so it kind of makes sense. Or, you know, rotting bodies can contain stuff that makes you sick. So it does make sense, but it's not all the entire story. So there is a grain of truth to it, I say.
So, no pigs in Dublin. Besides their odor, pigs were also, quite rightly, seen as animals of destruction, because with their snouts and their tusks, they were essentially made for rooting around in the dirt. In 1354, the pigs of Norwich were accused of wrecking houses, destruction of gardens, and others when
Wait, what?
buried.
Wrecking actual houses? That's, Can a pig really destroy a house even back then? I mean, it's just a pig. It's not. Maybe a horde of them could, I guess, but one pig? Unless they mean all together, that would make sense, but...
Exhumed. That is, the swine would go into cemeteries and dig up fresh corpses to munch on. And this was a big issue in a lot of places, and so there were a lot of laws put around where pigs were allowed to be in cities at any given time. And typically, they needed to stay penned up unless they were being escorted in or out of the city by a swineherd to feed. And even then, in some places, the pigs were required to wear...
Why don't they just keep the pigs outside, like outside the city? Is it just because it's too far away?
A nose ring, not in an effort to rebel against their... Some places, the pigs were required to wear a nose ring, not in an effort to rebel against their parents, but rather because the ring would stop them from rooting around in the dirt. Alas,
so that's what it does.
Efforts to stop the pigs from wandering the streets, it did happen somewhat frequently, and they caused havoc. In London, King Edward II sent...
Oh no! Two pigs doing something that shouldn't be said.
...to the mayor and sheriffs, enjoining them to see that the pavement of the city is repaired, the streets cleansed, and freed of vagrant pigs. The general rule in London was if you found a random pig wandering the streets, it was okay if you killed it. And then the owner of said pig had to pay you 4p. And in Colchester in 1488, it was decreed that no person whatsoever...
Are they bonking someone instead of the pig? What? I swear, medieval drawings are something else sometimes.
Whatsoever condition or degree he be of, burgess or foreign, be so bold or hardy to keep any boars, sows, or any other manner hog wandering or rooting in the common streets of the borough aforesaid, upon pain of forfeiture of the same.
That's a lot of words.
The pig would be taken to the moot hall and auctioned off, and the proceeds would be split 50-50 between the person who found the pig and the King of England. So basically, catching pigs could become a full-time job.
Ooh, I want that job.
Make sure that those pigs aren't wearing a bell. See, in 1131, the French Prince Philip was killed when his horse collided with a pig in the streets of the city. And
wait, who's king?
Pigs aren't wearing a bell. See, in 1131, the French Prince Philip
was
killed when his horse collided with a pig in the streets of the city.
Ooh.
And so, in an abundance of caution, an order was issued forbidding pigs in future to be kept in the streets. But the monks of St. Anthony, remonstrating against it, were allowed the exclusive privilege for theirs, on condition of their hanging a bell around the neck.
So like the bells are like of a bicycle in a way.
When the monks of St. Anthony's founded hospitals in cities from Austria to England, the rule followed along, and for centuries, any bell-wearing pigs of St. Anthony's were allowed to roam the cities at will. But I suspect, being hogs of the hospital, they were disinclined to cause mayhem, and were ne'er guilty of the crime so heinous which so many medieval pigs were capable of: murder. According to the coroner's inquest in Oxford, Sunday, May 7th.
What was that transition? It's like murder. This is the first time I see him do that.
Cause mayhem, and were ne'er guilty of the crime so heinous which so many medieval pigs were capable of:
murder.
According to the coroner's inquest in Oxford, Sunday, May 7th, 1392, it came to pass on Sunday, after the feast of St. John, that Agnes, daughter of Peter Perone, was killed by a sow in the parish of St. Giles. The sow ate the head of the said Agnes, even to the nose.
Holy fuck.
And so she died, and the sow was arrested. It reminds me of that so very upsetting scene from the movie Hannibal. It's a good movie, though. Anyway, this was unfortunately a rather common occurrence. It wasn't daily, but it happened enough that in many places,
How do you get killed by a pig, though?
domesticated pigs caused more deaths than wild animals, including the wild boar. And often,
I mean, I guess they are heavy. There's that. And they did have tusks back then. I guess if you really get in a fight with it, you could, and then the pig was turned into bacon. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
deaths than wild animals, including the wild boar. And often the victims were children. In Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, he writes, "The sow fret in the child, right in the cradle." And when I hear about this, I can't help but...
Yeah, if it's a baby or like a small child, I can definitely imagine that.
Simpsons episode with Troy McClure where he's talking about a cow, not a pig, but he says,
"Don't kid yourself, Jimmy. If a cow ever got the chance, he'd eat you and everyone you care about."
Now with all of
That reminds me, I've seen on YouTube, I think it was a cow eating a pigeon, or at least trying to, which is interesting. I've never seen that again, but I did see that, which is really weird. Because you usually think of a cow being like a herbivore, but apparently when they are desperate enough, they can actually try and eat other animals, which is interesting.
Self, Jimmy. If a cow ever got the chance, he'd eat you and everyone you care about.
Now with all of these deaths at the hands, or rather snouts, of pigs, it raises a question which was both asked and answered in the 15th century by a French jurist. If a brute animal commits a crime, as pigs sometimes do who eat children, should it die? I say that it does.
Fair point.
And in France and many parts of Europe, but mostly in France, this meant that the pig was to go on trial. Time and time again, medieval documents recount the trials of pigs, often ending in their hanging. One of the most interesting is from 1403, and it's a bill from a bailiff for the expenses incurred for the incarceration and subsequent execution of an infanticidal sow. This included
I wonder if the animals actually won a couple times.
The cost of keeping her in jail. Item to the master of high works, who came from Paris to Moulins to perform the said execution. For the carriage to take her to justice. For the cords to bind and hale her. For gloves. Tout deniers par ici. One of the most well-documented cases took place following an incident on September 5th, 13th.
Tout deniers par ici?
For gloves. Tout deniers par ici.
Is that basically $2 of Paris money or something? Is that what this means? Because it sounds like something completely different if I'm reading this with my French brain on. It basically says two last people in Paris or something like that, but I must have heard really wrong. Tout derniers Parisis or deniers Parisis, whatever.
One of the most well-documented cases took place following an incident on September 5th, 1379. Two herds of swine, one belonging to the town and the other to a local priory, were feeding together on the outskirts of town. For some reason, one of the piglets squealed, and 3 sows in the herd freaked out and charged the son of the swineherd, and they knocked him over, and it caused him injuries, which then led to his death.
Ooh.
Well, the 3 sows were put on trial and condemned to hang for the crime. But as both herds had hastened to the scene of the murder, and by their cries and aggressive actions showed that they approved of the assault and were ready and even eager to become participes criminis, they were arrested as accomplices and sentenced by the court to suffer the same penalty. The prior was so distraught over the potential loss of his entire herd of pigs that he petitioned Philip the Bold, Duke of Burgundy, to pardon most of the pigs. He said that only the 3 sows and 1 pig, which would stand in for the rest of the herd, should be put to death. And Philip the Duke agreed, and he sent a letter.
Yeah, I mean, it is his life savings at this point. I mean, you don't want to...
Actually still survives. It says, "We, inclining to his request, have by special grace granted and consented, and by these presents grant and consent that in doing justice and execution of the said 3 sows and 1 of the pigs of the said prior, that the remainder of the said pigs be set free."
Nice.
Now, I'd like to say that these trials were rare occurrences, but they were not. There are actually hundreds of records that document these trials from the 13th all the way through the 18th century, and even some in the mid-19th century.
Yeah, like the...
Then that all of Europe could agree that animals should not be held accountable for their crimes, and if anyone is held accountable, it should be their owners. But luckily, even with all of these menacing pigs, it didn't stop people from raising them because they were such a wonderful form of sustenance for so many people. And so there are so many records of pigs being eaten, both archaeological record and written record, including recipes like this one for cormarie. So once the pork is rested for 15 minutes or so,
that's very white.
Slice it up and serve it forth alongside the jus. And here we are, a pork dish of cormarie from the kitchens of King Richard II.
Nice.
So it has this wonderful crust on the outside. I got the end cap, which is always my favorite piece.
Really, I don't like the ending of the pig.
In a little bit of that jus.
Jus. I like how he pronounces it.
Delicious.
Nice.
So the meat itself is wonderfully tender and moist. It's well cooked. The flavor of the marinade is mild, very subtle.
Oh?
It's definitely there, but it is subtle. I think if you made smaller pieces and marinated them, you would get more of the flavor. You know, it would penetrate all the way through because it is a really nice flavor. You get the garlic. You get the caraway.
There was garlic?
A lot. And you
I probably
can
forgot.
adjust the quantities of the different spices to be what you want it to be. I like caraway. And that is something that you usually don't find in a modern pork recipe, at least that I've ever had. So it is kind of a nice, interesting flavor. In the Middle Ages, caraway was not as popular as it would later become. By like the Tudor period, caraway was being used in a lot of things, especially desserts. But here it's
What is caraway?
not as common. They were still using a lot more cinnamon and nutmeg and things like that in their meats. So this is interesting for that reason. The jus is...
Why are you trying to drink it with a fucking fork? Use a spoon or something, no?
Actually, there's a lot of flavor there.
I mean, to be fair, I think I kind of do that too. I just put my fork in and just lick it.
Because it's just the beef broth, but then you get a lot of flavor from this, from the meat drippings, and from that bit of the marinade that we poured over it at the beginning. And I do think that that's important. It's going to lend a lot of flavor to the jus. So the nice thing about this recipe is it's rather simple.
Is it
It takes a
really?
little while to make simply because of the marinating, but other than that, it's very easy.
How can I
to
make that on stream?
It's a wonderful
if it needs to like go to the fridge for overnight.
recipe to start if you wanted to get into medieval cooking because it is accessible. It's not like something that you're going to taste the flavors and be like, whoa, what is this? It's really accessible. I can see this on a menu today. So make some medieval pork, raise a pig.
No.
Non-threatening pig, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Nice. That was nice. Okay. I didn't know that pigs used to have the tusks. I know that they were there, but... Huh.